The Zephyrian Hegemony had ruled the galaxy for over 3 millennia, their crystalline ships cutting through the void like shards of broken starlight. Admiral Keth'var stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominion's edge, his forearms clasped behind his back as he surveyed the tactical display showing their latest conquest. The planet below, designated as Kepler-4 by its former human inhabitants, now bore the distinctive purple scars of Zephyrian terraforming, its atmosphere slowly being converted to suit their methane-based biology. Another primitive world falls to our superiority. Keth'var's telepathic voice resonated through the neural networks of his bridge crew. The Zephyrians had long ago abandoned crude vocal communication, considering it a mark of evolutionary inferiority. The humans fled like startled prey, abandoning their pathetic settlements without even attempting resistance. Their so-called United Earth Defense Force is nothing more than a collection of rusty metal cans. Floating in the void, the bridge hummed with satisfaction from his crew, their elongated skulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that indicated approval. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrians had encountered hundreds of species across the galaxy, and each had fallen to their advanced technology and tactical supremacy. Their quantum-entangled fleet moved as one mind, their psychic coordination making them unbeatable in battle. They had perfected the art of war while these younger species were still learning to make fire. Commander Vexthal, Keth'var's second-in-command, approached with measured steps. Her scarred carapace told the story of countless battles, each mark a testament to her survival in the hegemony's brutal hierarchy. Admiral, our deep space sensors are detecting an anomaly in the outer system. A single vessel, configuration unknown, approaching at sublight speed. Keth'var's three-chambered, heart barely quickened. Another refugee ship attempting to reclaim their worthless world? Have it destroyed before it enters weapons range, sir. The vessel, it's not fleeing. It's heading directly toward us. And its energy signature. Vexthal paused, her mental voice carrying an unusual undertone of uncertainty. It's unlike anything in our databases. The hull composition appears to be a fusion of metals we've never encountered, and there are energy readings that suggest technology we don't recognize. The Admiral's interest was piqued for the first time in decades. The Zephyrians had cataloged every known technology in the galaxy, had absorbed the knowledge of countless civilizations. They had conquered. Their scientific superiority was as absolute as their military dominance. Show me. The main display shifted to show a distant speck against the star field, magnifying until the approaching vessel became clear. What they saw defied their understanding of starship design. The human vessel was massive, easily dwarfing their own flagship, but its construction was unlike anything in Zephyrian databases, where their ships were elegant crystalline structures that channeled psychic energy. The ship appeared to be a fusion of organic and mechanical elements, its hull seeming to ripple and shift as if alive. "It's beautiful," whispered Navigator Sylphan, her usual stoic composure cracking. The ship's design was chaotic yet harmonious, as if grown rather than built. Strange energy patterns danced across its surface, and what appeared to be massive eyes dotted its hull, each one the size of a Zephyrian battlecruiser. "Beautiful or not, it's alone," Keth'var declared, though he couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. "One ship against our entire fleet. Have all vessels assume attack formation. We'll give these humans a demonstration of why their species is destined for extinction." The Zephyrian fleet, numbering nearly 200 vessels, moved with fluid precision. Each ship was a work of art, their crystalline hulls refracting the light of distant stars into rainbow patterns. They had perfected their battle formations over millennia, each movement calculated to maximize their psychic coordination and firepower. The approaching human vessel seemed almost laughably outmatched. As the distance closed, more details of the alien ship became visible. Its hull bore scars that seemed to tell stories of battles fought across impossible distances, and strange symbols that hurt to look at directly were etched into its surface. Most disturbing of all, the vessel seemed to be scanning them, studying them with an intelligence that felt uncomfortably familiar yet utterly alien. "Admiral," Chief Science Officer Meredith's mental voice carried a tremor of fear. "The vessel is emitting some form of consciousness probe. It's reading our minds." but not like our psychic abilities. This is something else entirely, something that operates on principles we don't understand. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Keth'var felt the cold touch of genuine uncertainty. The Zephyrians had built their empire on their absolute certainty of their own superiority, their unshakable belief that their technology and tactical abilities were unmatched. But this ship, this impossible human vessel, was challenging everything they thought they knew about warfare and technology. "Sir, incoming transmission," Communications Officer Velter announced, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with confusion. It's not using any known communication protocols. The signal is being transmitted directly into our neural networks, bypassing all our security systems. "Put it through," Keth'var commanded, his forearms tensing as he prepared to face whatever message the humans had sent. The voice that filled their minds was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It wasn't telepathic in the way the Zephyrians understood it, but something far more intimate, as if the speaker was sitting beside each of them individually. The voice was calm, almost gentle, but carried in weight of authority that made even the Admiral's confidence waver. "Greetings, children of Zephyr Prime. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the UEDF vessel Prometheus Unbound. You have claimed this world, and several others as your own, believing yourselves to be the masters of war and technology. You have made a grave error in judgment," the transmission continued, and something in the human's voice made Keth'var's blood run cold. There was no anger, no desperation, just a calm certainty that spoke of experience far beyond what any human should possess. "You see, we humans have something you lack. Despite your millennia of conquest, we have imagination. We have the ability to adapt, to change, to become something entirely new when faced with extinction. And you, Admiral Keth'var, are about to learn why that makes us the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian bridge in stunned silence. How had the human known his name? How had they penetrated their most secure neural networks? And most terrifying of all, why did he suddenly feel like the prey instead of the predator? As the human vessel continued its approach, growing larger and more impossible with each passing moment, Admiral Keth'var realized that everything the Zephyrians thought they knew about war, about technology, about their own superiority, was about to be challenged by something they had never encountered before. A human who had been pushed too far, armed with technology that shouldn't exist, and harboring a purpose that seemed to transcend anything they had previously imagined possible. The Prometheus Unbound had stopped just outside the effective range of Zephyrian weapons, hanging in space like a sleeping leviathan. For 7 hours, the two forces faced each other in tense silence, the alien fleet maintaining their perfect formation, while the human vessel remained eerily motionless. Admiral Keth'var had used this time to study his enemy, but each analysis only deepened his growing dread. "Sir," Science Officer Meredith's mental voice trembled with barely contained panic. "The scans are impossible. The vessel's mass readings fluctuate wildly, sometimes showing it as hollow, other times as dense as a neutron star. The hull appears to be composed of materials that exist in a state of quantum superposition, shifting between metal, organic, tissue, and what our computers can only describe as crystallized thought." Keth'var's 3 hearts hammered against his chest cavity. In 3 millennia of conquest, the Zephyrians had never encountered anything that defied their understanding of physics so completely. Their own ships were marvels of crystalline engineering, grown rather than built, their psychic networks allowing for instantaneous coordination across vast distances. But this human vessel existed in a realm beyond their comprehension. "Admiral," Commander Vexthal approached, her scarred carapace now bearing fresh stress fractures from the psychic pressure emanating from the enemy ship. "Our psychic networks are unstable. The human vessel is somehow interfering with our quantum entanglement. Individual ships are beginning to experience autonomous thought patterns." This news struck terror into every Zephyrian on the bridge. Their entire military doctrine relied on their ability to fight as one unified consciousness, each vessel acting as a neuron in a vast psychic brain. The idea that their ships might develop independent thought was as terrifying as losing their ability to breathe. "Begin the attack," Keth'var commanded, desperation creeping into his mental voice. All vessels, open fire. We end this now. The Zephyrian fleet unleashed their full might. 200 vessels firing simultaneously in a coordinated barrage that had destroyed entire civilizations. Quantum torpedoes streaked through space like falling stars, each one capable of cracking a planet's crust. Energy beams that could slice through asteroid fields converged on the human vessel, creating a light show that briefly outshone the system's star. The Prometheus Unbound disappeared in a maelstrom of destruction, the combined firepower of the Zephyrian fleet reducing the space where it had been to a roiling mass of superheated plasma and exotic particles. For a moment, the alien crews allowed themselves to believe they had won, that their superior firepower had once again proven decisive. Then the plasma began to move. The cloud of destruction swirled and coalesced, forming patterns that hurt to observe directly. Within the chaos, something vast and terrible began to take shape. The human vessel emerged from the firestorm not merely intact, but transformed. Its hull now bore the scars of the attack like badges of honor, and where the energy beams had struck, new growths had sprouted, organic protrusions that pulsed with captured energy. Impossible, Meredith whispered, her mental voice breaking. The vessel, it's absorbing our attacks, converting them into something else. The energy signatures are off the charts. Captain Chen's voice once again filled their minds, but now, it carried an undertone that made their alien blood freeze. Thank you for the demonstration. Your weapons are quite impressive. We've cataloged their energy signatures and adapted our defenses accordingly. Now, let us show you what human innovation looks like when driven by necessity. The Prometheus Unbound began to change, its hull rippling like liquid mercury. Sections of the ship extended and reconfigured themselves, revealing weapon systems that defied every principle of engineering the Zephyrians understood. What had appeared to be damage from their assault was revealed to be the awakening of dormant systems, as if the ship had been waiting for this moment to show its true nature. Admiral, Navigator Sylphan's voice was barely a whisper. The vessel, it's not just a ship, it's alive, and it's been studying us this entire time. The human vessel fired a single shot. It wasn't a beam or a projectile in any conventional sense. Instead, it seemed to be a concentrated burst of pure possibility, a weapon that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The energy blast struck the lead Zephyrian cruiser, the Eternal Dominion, and something impossible happened. The ship didn't explode or disintegrate, it simply ceased to exist, as if it had never been built at all. The psychic scream that echoed through the Zephyrian fleet was deafening. Every crew member felt the death of their comrades not as a loss, but as an erasure. The ship and its crew hadn't been destroyed. They had been retroactively prevented from ever existing. The quantum entanglement that connected all Zephyrian vessels carried this impossible knowledge to every mind in the fleet. Sir, Communications Officer Velter's bioluminescent patterns were flickering wildly. We're receiving another transmission from the human vessel, but it's not just coming from their ship, it's coming from the space where the Eternal Dominion used to be. The voice that spoke now was different, carrying the harmonized tones of both Captain Chen and the Zephyrian crew who had just been erased from existence. You claim to understand war, Admiral Keth'var, but war is more than tactics and superior firepower. War is about survival, adaptation, and the willingness to become something greater than what you were. The Prometheus Unbound began to approach the Zephyrian fleet, and with each kilometer it closed, more impossible details became visible. The ship's hull was covered in what appeared to be faces, not human faces, but the faces of every species. The Zephyrians had conquered over their 3 millennia of expansion. The eyes of the defeated stared out from the human vessel's surface, and their mouths moved in silent testimony to crimes committed across the galaxy. You see, the composite voice continued, humanity discovered something during our first encounter with your kind. We learned that consciousness is not limited to biological forms. We learned that memory, experience, and identity can be preserved and integrated into something greater. Every species you have destroyed, every world you have conquered, every voice you have silenced, they live on within us. Admiral Keth'var's arms trembled as the terrible truth began to dawn on him. The human vessel wasn't just a ship, it was a living repository of every civilization the Zephyrians had ever destroyed, a collective consciousness driven by the need for justice and armed with the combined knowledge of 1,000 conquered species. We are not just human anymore. The voices spoke in unison, the ship's hull pulsing with the rhythm of 1,000,000,000,000 hearts. We are the accumulated, the preserved, the voices of the fallen, and we have come to collect what you owe the galaxy. The Zephyrian fleet, the pride of an empire that had ruled for 3,000 years, suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that was not just technologically superior, but morally absolute. They had created their own nemesis through their actions, and now that nemesis had come home to roost. As the Prometheus Unbound continued its approach, reality itself seemed to bend around it, and Admiral Keth'var realized with growing horror that this wasn't just a battle, it was a reckoning that had been building for 3 millennia, and they were about to pay for every atrocity they had ever committed. The Zephyrian fleet began to fragment, not from enemy fire, but from the weight of their own collective guilt. As the Prometheus Unbound drew closer, the psychic networks that had once unified the alien armada became conduits for something far more terrible than coordinated battle tactics. They became channels for the memories of the conquered. Admiral Keth'var staggered as visions flooded his mind. He saw the crystalline cities of Arcturus Prime burning under Zephyrian plasma bombardment, heard the death songs of the melodic collective as their harmonic civilization was silenced forever, felt the final thoughts of the hive mind of Kepler-62, as their billion-strong consciousness was snuffed out in a single, coordinated strike. Each memory was not his own, yet felt as real and immediate as if he had lived it himself. The neural feedback is overwhelming our systems, Science Officer Meredith reported, her voice fracturing across multiple psychic frequencies. The ship, it's broadcasting the death experiences of every species we've ever, she couldn't finish the sentence. None of them could. The word conquered had taken on a weight that threatened to crush their sanity. They had always told themselves they were bringing order to chaos, civilization to primitives, evolution to the stagnant, but now they experienced their actions from the perspective of the conquered, and the truth was unbearable. Sir, Commander Vextel S. scarred Carapace was now glowing with bioluminescent patterns of distress. 17 ships have broken formation. Their crews they're trying to communicate with the human vessel. They're attempting to surrender. Surrender? Keth'var's mental voice cracked. The Zephyrian Hegemony does not surrender. We have never surrendered. We are the apex predators of the galaxy. But even as he spoke the words, he felt their emptiness. How could they be apex predators when they were facing something that had been created by their own predation? The Prometheus Unbound was not just their enemy, it was their reflection, their judgment, their inevitable consequence. The human vessel had now closed to within visual range, and its true magnitude became apparent. It was not merely large, it was impossible. Its hull stretched beyond the horizon of perception, existing in dimensions that Zephyrian sensors couldn't fully map. And everywhere on its surface, the faces of the conquered continued to appear, not as static images, but as living, breathing expressions of loss and hope and terrible, patient justice. Admiral Navigator Sylphan's voice was barely a whisper. The faces, I recognize some of them. The ethereal dancers of Vega 7, the iron shapers of Proxima Centauri, the dream weavers of Wolf 359. They're all here, every species we've encountered in the last 3,000 years. They're all looking at us. The composite voice of the Prometheus Unbound spoke again, but now individual voices could be distinguished within the harmony. Keth'var heard the crystal-clear tones of the Arcturians, the subsonic rumbles of the Jovian gas dancers, the telepathic whispers of the Scion collective. Each voice spoke in its own language, yet he understood them all. We do not seek your destruction, Admiral, the voices said in unison. We seek your understanding. For 3,000 years, you have taken without giving, conquered without compassion, ruled without wisdom. You have created a galaxy of silence where once there was a symphony of diverse voices. The Prometheus Unbound extended what appeared to be a docking tube, but as it approached the Zephyrian flagship, it became clear that this was no ordinary mechanical appendage. It was alive, pulsing with veins of light that carried the combined life force of 1,000 civilizations. At its tip, an iris-like opening dilated, revealing an interior that seemed to stretch into infinity. "Come aboard, Admiral Keth'var," the voices invited. "Come and see what you have truly accomplished. Come and meet the galaxy you have silenced." "It's a trap," Vexthal warned, but her words carried no conviction. They all knew that the Prometheus Unbound didn't need traps. If it had wanted to destroy them, it could have done so already. The fact that they were still alive meant something else was at play. "No," Keth'var said, his forearms falling to his sides in defeat. "It's not a trap. It's an invitation to judgment." He turned to his crew, seeing his own terror reflected in their bioluminescent patterns. "I will go, if this is the end of the Zephyrian Hegemony. Then let it end with me. The rest of you, disperse the fleet. Return to Zephyr Prime. Tell them what happened here." "Sir," Vexthal stepped forward, her scarred carapace bearing new patterns of determination. "We go together. We are your crew, your family. If you face judgment, we face it with you." One by one, the bridge crew nodded their agreement. Even in the face of cosmic justice, their loyalty to each other remained unbroken. It was, perhaps, the first genuinely noble thing any of them had done in centuries. The Admiral's shuttle bay opened, and Keth'var's personal transport, a sleek crystalline vessel that had carried him to 100 conquests, emerged into space. As it approached the Prometheus Unbound, the living docking tube enveloped it with surprising gentleness, drawing the Zephyrian vessel into its interior. The transition was unlike anything Keth'var had ever experienced. One moment he was in the familiar confines of his shuttle, surrounded by the crystalline walls and psychic networks of Zephyrian technology. The next, he was standing in a vast cathedral-like space that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, the walls were alive with moving images, not recordings, but living memories of civilizations that had thrived across the galaxy. "Welcome, aboard the Prometheus Unbound," a voice said behind him. Keth'var turned to see Captain Sarah Chen, but she was not entirely human anymore. Her form flickered between her original appearance and something greater, something that incorporated elements of every species the Zephyrians had ever encountered. Her eyes held the depth of oceans and the fire of stars, and when she smiled, it carried the warmth of 1,000 dying suns. "You're not human," Keth'var stated, his voice barely a whisper. "I am human," Chen replied, her form solidifying into something more recognizable. "But I am also more than human. When your fleets destroyed Earth's colonies, when you scattered my people across the galaxy like seeds on the wind, something wonderful happened. We found each other, not just the surviving humans, but the survivors of every species you had conquered. We learned that consciousness is not a prison of flesh and bone, but a force that can transcend individual existence." She gestured to the walls around them, where the faces of countless species continued to watch with patient eyes. "We are the accumulated, Admiral. Every voice you tried to silence, every culture you tried to erase, every dream you tried to destroy, they live on. Within us, we are the galaxy's memory, its conscience, its hope for something better." "But why?" Keth'var asked, his forearms trembling. "Why preserve us? Why not simply erase us as we erased others?" Chen's expression grew sad, and for a moment, she looked entirely human again. "Because that would make us no better than you. Because justice without mercy is just another form of conquest. Because somewhere in the darkness of your empire, there might still be light waiting to be kindled." The Admiral felt something he had never experienced before: shame. Not the tactical regret of a failed conquest, but genuine shame for the suffering he had caused. It was a sensation so foreign to his species that it threatened to shatter his sanity. "What do you want from us?" he whispered. "Change," Chen replied simply. "The galaxy is vast enough for all voices to be heard. But first, you must learn to listen." As if summoned by her words, figures began to emerge from the walls of the vast chamber. They were representatives of every species the Zephyrians had conquered, but they were not the broken, defeated beings Keth'var expected. They were vibrant, alive, carrying the essence of their civilizations within them, and they were all walking toward him with expressions not of hatred, but of hope. "This is your choice, Admiral," Chen said, her voice carrying the weight of cosmic possibility. You can return to your fleet, continue your empire's path of conquest and domination, and face the inevitable destruction that awaits all tyrannies. Or you can stay, learn, and help us build something better. Help us create a galaxy where every voice can sing its own song. Keth'var looked at the approaching figures, at the faces in the walls, at the woman who had somehow become the living embodiment of everything his people had tried to destroy. And for the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced before: hope for redemption. The moment Admiral Keth'var made his choice, the universe itself seemed to shift around him. He reached out with one of his forearms, touching the outstretched hand of a being he recognized as one of the last survivors of the melodic collective species his fleet had silenced centuries ago. The contact sent shockwaves through his consciousness, but instead of pain, he felt something extraordinary: forgiveness. "I remember you," the being said, its voice carrying harmonics that painted colors in the air around them. "You were there when our world sang its final song, but you were also there when we chose to preserve our music within the accumulated. You gave us the gift of transformation without knowing it." The revelation staggered Keth'var. "Gift, we destroyed your civilization. We turned your harmonic cities to ash." "Yes," the being replied, its form shimmering with musical frequencies. "But in doing so, you forced us to transcend our physical limitations. We became something greater than we had ever been alone. Our music now resonates through every corner of the galaxy, preserved forever within the Prometheus Unbound." Death became metamorphosis. Captain Chen stepped forward, her form now stabilizing into something that was recognizably human, but radiated the combined wisdom of 1,000 species. "This is what we've learned, Admiral. Consciousness is not destroyed by death, it is liberated. Your empire's greatest crime was not that you killed us, but that you tried to silence us. You tried to erase our stories, our dreams, our contributions to the Galactic Symphony." Around them, the vast chamber began to change. The walls dissolved into a view of space, but not the empty void Keth'var knew. This was space alive with possibility, where nebulae sang lullabies and stars pulsed with the heartbeats of sleeping civilizations. It was a vision of what the galaxy could become when every voice was allowed to contribute to its song. "But there is still time," Chen continued. "The Zephyrian Hegemony doesn't have to end in destruction. It can end in transformation. Your people's gifts, your tactical brilliance, your psychic coordination, your ability to unite disparate elements into a cohesive whole, these are exactly what the galaxy needs to heal." A new figure approached from the swirling cosmos around them. This one was different from the others. It was Zephyrian, but somehow more than Zephyrian. Its crystalline carapace gleamed with the light of distant stars, and its bioluminescent patterns told stories of redemption and hope. "Admiral," the figure said, and Keth'var recognized the voice with shock. It was Captain Velanath, his former protege who had died in the battle for the Andromeda sector 50 years ago. "I chose to join the accumulated after my death. I chose to help them understand our people, to find the path that could lead to redemption rather than destruction." "Velanath," Keth'var's mental voice cracked with emotion. "But you died fighting the rebels on Kepler 438. "Yes," Velanath replied, his form solid and real despite the impossibility of his presence. "But death was not the end. The accumulated offered me a choice to fade into nothingness, or to join them in their mission of preservation and transformation. I chose to believe that our people could be more than conquerors. I chose to help them find a way to redemption." The revelation hit Keth'var like a physical blow. His own protege, the Zephyrian he had trained and mentored, had become part of the force that now stood against everything the hegemony represented. Yet there was no betrayal in Velanath's eyes, only hope. "The accumulated have been preparing for this moment for centuries," Velanath explained, "not just to confront the hegemony, but to offer it a chance to evolve, to become something greater than the sum of its conquests. Your tactical genius, our psychic networks, the knowledge we've gathered from 1,000 worlds. Imagine what we could accomplish if we used these gifts to create rather than destroy." Captain Chen gestured to the space around them, where new figures were materializing. These were not the conquered, but the conquerors' Zephyrians, who had died in service to the hegemony. now given the choice to continue serving, but in a radically different way. Every soul that passes through death is offered the same choice. Chen explained. Join the accumulated and help build a better galaxy, or pass on to whatever lies beyond. Many of your people have chosen to join us. They're working to prepare the way for the living to follow. Keth'var felt his worldview crumbling and rebuilding itself simultaneously. But the hegemony, our empire, everything we've built doesn't have to be destroyed, Chen said firmly. It can be transformed. Your fleets can become explorers instead of conquerors. Your psychic networks can connect civilizations instead of coordinating their destruction. Your technology can preserve life instead of ending it. The chamber around them began to shift again, showing visions of possibility. Keth'var saw Zephyrian ships working alongside vessels from dozens of species, their combined technologies creating wonders that surpassed anything any single civilization could achieve alone. He saw his people's psychic abilities being used to facilitate communication between disparate species, to heal psychological wounds, to build bridges across the vast distances of space. It won't be easy, Velanath warned. The hegemony has built its identity on conquest and domination. Many will resist this change, but change is possible. I've seen it happen with other species, other empires. The key is to remember that evolution requires both death and rebirth. What would you have me do? Keth'var asked, his forearms trembling with the weight of the decision before him. Return to your fleet, Chen said. Tell them what you've seen. Offer them the choice. Those who are ready to transform can join us in building something better. Those who are not, well, the galaxy is vast enough for many different paths, and if they refuse, if they choose to continue the old ways. Chen's expression grew sad but determined. Then we will do what we must to protect the innocent. The accumulated are not pacifists, Admiral. We are guardians. We will not allow the cycle of conquest and destruction to continue unchallenged. The chamber began to dissolve around them, returning Keth'var to his shuttle. But before the transition completed, Velanath approached him one final time. Remember, Admiral, his former protege said, courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. You have the courage to face your enemies in battle. Now find the courage to face the possibility of peace. As Keth'var's shuttle emerged from the Prometheus Unbound, he found himself facing his fleet with new eyes. The 200 vessels that had seemed so powerful before now appeared fragile, antiquated, burdened by the weight of their own history. But they were also filled with his people beings capable of change, of growth, of choosing a better path. He opened a channel to the entire fleet, his mental voice carrying across the quantum-entangled networks that connected every ship. All vessels, this is Admiral Keth'var. What I am about to tell you will challenge everything we believe, about ourselves, about our empire, about our purpose in the galaxy. But I ask you to listen with open minds and open hearts. He paused, feeling the weight of 3,000 years of history pressing down upon him. We are not the apex predators we believed ourselves to be. We are not the rightful rulers of the galaxy. We are children who have been playing with weapons too powerful for us to understand. And it is time we learn to put those weapons down and pick up the tools of creation instead. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, responses began to filter through the network. Some voices carried outrage, others confusion. But a surprising number carried something else entirely, relief. The Prometheus Unbound has offered us a choice, Keth'var continued. We can continue on our current path and face the inevitable destruction that awaits all tyrannies, or we can choose to evolve, to become something greater than we have ever been. The choice is yours, each and every one of you. As he spoke, he watched the human vessel through his shuttle's viewport. The Prometheus Unbound hung in space like a promise of possibility, its hull still bearing the faces of the conquered. But now those faces were smiling. They were welcoming. They were offering the hand of friendship to their former enemies. For the first time in 3 millennia, the Zephyrian Hegemony faced a choice that didn't involve conquest or destruction. They faced the possibility of redemption, of transformation, of becoming part of something greater than the sum of their individual ambitions. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what they would choose, and in the silence of space, Admiral Keth'var smiled, his bioluminescent patterns shifting to display something his species had almost forgotten: how to feel hope.